everyone. Thank you very much for coming, attending our class. And this is going to be 45th online class that we are doing from our HQ office, Yamato Manufacturing, Kagawa, Japan. My name is Akira. I'm going to be host for this class, and this is Megumi, and she's making craft ramen noodles from scratch today on a noodle machine. And so we're talking about ramen business, restaurant business 103. So we did like 101, 102, and then this is 10 will be 103, this class. And so let me get into it. Last class, I mean, 101 class, we talked about like well planning, business, building a business plan, how to get started on your ramen noodle business with some sort of like solid, success rate. And then, what we did, like we have to do like some market research to be able to have like kind of clearer prospect into what kind of products would have to be developing and serving in your market and things like that. And then of course like that would be like kind of like strong foundation for your ramen noodle business. And last class, the last week, we did like ramen business 102, and which focused on the or more like kind of like production operation side of things. And then we talked about like how like each component of what ramen dish is like produced in detail. And then and eventually like what kind of equipment that we need to be able to like operate this kind of production. So that was the last installment of this class. And so today we are talking about ramen business 103. And yeah, so the reason we've been doing this class on like ramen business, um, restaurant business, is that like we've been running school that teaches like how to start like a successful ramen restaurant businesses from scratch. Teaching like everything from production noodles, production soups, production toppings, and even like how to develop your own ramen dishes from scratch, and how to operate, how to manage ramen restaurant businesses. So that's why like I think we are well positioned to be talking about this kind of subject. So that's why we've been doing like this is going to be third installment of this class. And so today we are talking about the so we prepared everything right so far, and then finally we are putting things together, right? And like for example, like in like ramen shop setting, we are going to be assembling all the parts we prepared in production preparation stage, soups, toppings, noodles. We are going to be assembling them as parts, right, into final products, and we are going to be serving them at our ramen shop or like some other setting. And then we're gonna demonstrate like how fresh ramen noodles are made from scratch, noodle machine. And after that, we're gonna be moving to our ramen well school kitchen where we actually teach like how to make soups and everything. And we're gonna show you guys how ramen dishes are put together. So that's what's going to be happening. And then if you have any questions, please feel free to send them in the comments, and then we'd be more than happy to answer them. So let's get started. And so ramen business, we talked about ramen business like last class. We talked about like the production, preparation of like all these components that we are producing as like parts, right? Parts into final products. And then we should think about think of like ramen business or like ramen restaurant business, whether it's restaurant business or like ramen so like production distribution business as two sides or like three sides to it. And so like one of them should be like it's the factory, right? Factory where we produce like each of the components that we would be assembling into final product at our ramen shop or like some other settings. So we're gonna be producing like soups, right? as a part, like in different types of soups and different types of like base stocks, right? Base stocks, base sauces, base flavored oil, which were formed into ramen soup and noodles, right? And different types of noodles and different types of toppings and side dishes. So these are all like produced, made from scratch at our factory, right? A factory, and they're going to be well distributed to or like our outlet, right? Where we're going to be assembling them. If you say like so, like we're going to be kind of putting them together, right, into final product and serving them. So that's where like we actually deliver the products to the customer. So these are the sort of like cycle like we think of from business as, and so like production like and then so we make everything from advance, right, each of these components, and then store them, right, probably like for 1 to 2 days, everything from base stocks like tare and flavored oil to like noodles and then different types of toppings. And then these are going to be like assembled and served to the customers. And then like we make a feedback from the customers, and then we're going to reflect that feedback into or back into production. So like this is a cycle that yeah we go through in our ramen business. And so we talked about this evolution of ramen, right? So now, like we've seen, like we started out with kind of starter ramen, standard ramen, which has the like good amount of soup, right, and hot or cold, and we like cooked noodles in it. And so this is a like noodle soup dish, right? That was a standard, that's what we started with. So like soup volume is high and the soup density like could be like a little high, a little too high. And then we came across the something we call like tsukemen style ramen, like dipping noodles. And we have like a lot of good amount of noodles, and we have like less soup that we basically like dip the noodles in. And so soup volume is low, but like the soup density is middle to high. So like has like stronger taste and flavor to it. That's strong enough, right, for us to be able to like taste the fresh, the cooked noodles with it. And then it came like mazamen, like it's like this is a soupless noodle, and so that doesn't soup at all in it. And we what we have is that like we have like sauce, like tare and flavored oil, and then we just coat the noodles with them, and so you just eat them, right? So like this is the kind of the most advanced style of ramen dish. And the reason I'm talking about these is that like so these are the like kind of three basic styles of ramen that we're going to be putting together and like assembling, and because like each style has like kind of different kind of parts like ratios to them. So and then like how we prepare them like maybe they're a bit different. So I just wanted to explain. And so like we'll be like assembling the soup component, which consists of these three things. And when we're talking about a hot soup noodle dish, right? And so basically the base stock that could be like made of like animal type ingredients, seafood type ingredients, vegetable, and other types like fruits and other things, other ingredients. And that's a base stock, right? That's base stock, and it's usually 300 serving and 300 grams per serving. And we add so tare, like what we call like motozzarella, like base sauces, which is like maybe around like 3 to 15% of the base stock weight. And three major types of this base stock. Tare is like miso, right, and the soy sauce, like which is shoyu, and salt, which some people call shio, right, in Japanese, uh, and then we're gonna be adding flavored oil, like these oils that we infuse these different types of like ingredients into, and then they add like great aroma to the soup, right? And so that dramatically affects the flavor of the soup. So this component is also important too. There can be like flavored oils are made of like animal type ingredients, and there can be like other types like flavored oils made out of like plant type. So that these three things, flavored oil, motodare, like base sauce, and then base stock, right? And um, they're putting together to make ramen, a bowl of ramen soup. So I just want to point it out that like it's so each of these components is like made separately. So like you could have like base stock, like the pork bone base stock like that has like certain density, certain level of density, right? And then like you have like maybe like you have like some kind of kelp stock, right? Kelp stock, a certain level of density, and so these are made separate, like stored separately as different parts, right? And then you have like miso tare, like you have like different types of like soy sauce tare, the different types of salt tare, right? And then you have like different types of like flavored oils, and these are produced and stored separately as different parts, and they're put together. They're assembled at different ratios maybe, and put together to according to the final recipe that we have. So just wanted to point out that like these are put together to order. When we get an order from customer like at a ramen shop, they're going to be assembled to order. But these are sort of like manufactured and like made, produced in advance at a factory as parts to the soup. So putting them together, right? And so like this is a hot soup noodle, and you have like tare, right? And then flavored oil put in the bowl, right? And then but like this tare and flavored oil are of course well measured and well, like according to recipe, right? And we're gonna have to like heat up the base stock and basically like to boiling point, and then add it to the bowl and then mix it with the tare and flavored oil, and you're gonna be putting cooked noodles, and I wanna mix the noodles in to the soup, and just sort of like kind of getting all the noodles kind of coated with tare like flavored oil and the soup, right? And that's this bowl is ready for plating the toppings. So that's how you sort of like kind of that's the order of assembling a bowl of hot soup noodles. So hot soup noodle dish consists of like ramen soup, which consists of like tare, um, the flavored oil. So tare like basically like 10 to like 15 grams like to the base stock of the 300 grams, and flavored oil like which adds aroma to the soup, which is typically like 40 to like 60 grams. It really depends on the density level of the base stock, and then the what kind of soup you're trying to make, right? And the noodles, fresh noodles weigh usually like 100 to like 130 grams in kind of fresh noodle weight before cooking. And it's made of like wheat flour, other types of grains, water, constantly, salt, and the toppings. Of course, you can have like protein, fiber, some ingredients. And so when serving and assembling ramen soup, right, for the hot ramen noodle soup dish, we had to heat up the beef stock, right, to boil, right, basically. And then we're going to be adding it to the bowl with tare, which is a seasoning, and flavored oil aroma in. And so what's important here is that like we have to like bring it to boil before we add it to the flavored oil and then the tare in the bowl. And There's a picture of a tsukemen dish, like dipping noodle dish, and um, so tsukemen dish like consists of like dipping sauce, which is like approximately like half of the like base stock like amount, and sometimes like fish flakes sort of like infused. Like so we cooked the fish flakes, right? Fish flakes in the base stock to get that flavor of fish flakes like infused into the stock, right? And then we added to the bowl, which has the tare, then flavor all like really already like measured. And what we should note is here's that like tare like amount of tare like we're adding is like it's a lot, right? Like we're gonna have like a lot higher like salty level, stronger taste of the whatever like shoyu or like shio or like even some miso tare that we're using the dipping sauce, and because the dipping sauce like it has to be kind of strong enough like in taste and flavor to be able to like for us to be able to like kind of taste the whole thing, right? Like when noodles are dipped in there. So that's the reason. And so again, like we had to like heat the stock to the boiling and then add it to the tare and flavored oil when we were serving it to the customers. So like like per serving. So we had to do that per serving. And so this is a picture of like mazamen cup that we sort of like kind of made up for like delivery or takeout um, business of ramen business. And then so mazamen is it's like basically soupless ramen, and so instead of like base stock, like we have mixing sauce, which consists of tare, like seasoning, like usually like 20 to like 30 grams, the tare, right? And then flavored oil, it's about like 50 to 60 grams. And then we may have like some kind of like fish powder or like some other like condiments mixed well, like in the mixing sauce. And we basically cook the noodles, right? Cook the fresh noodles, like which are like usually 130 to like 200 grams, um, and like in fresh weight, fresh noodle weight, and then we cook them right thoroughly, and then strain them thoroughly, right? And then we add the noodles to the bowl and mix them well with all the sauces, like mixing sauce that we made. So this is like how we like assemble like with this kind of soup component. So we have to cook noodles. So every time like we get an order, like we cook the noodles, right? We start cooking noodles, and usually cooking noodles takes the longest time. Like which means that like it's a bottleneck, right? In this operation, assembling of then the serving operation, right? So like whenever we get an order, like you start cooking noodles, unless that noodles like very thin and the cooking time like takes short amount of time. And it's like so. What's important here is that like we have to cook it. We have to cook them, and then we have to when they're done, right? We have to like strain them. Um, very well. Like so we want to get rid of like all the water as much as possible from the noodles so that the noodle like when we put noodles into the soup, right? They will not dilute the soup as much. So we can retain the taste, the soup, and as we sort of like estimate like we estimated in recipe. And other things I have to mention here is that like we when we are serving noodles, sometimes like noodles are especially like when like we are thick serving like thick noodles. Thick noodles like tend to have like kind of thick layers of um, gelatinized starch, right? The outer surface noodles, so they are kind of slimy texture, and some people don't like it. And we usually after cooking, for example, like tsukemen noodles, dipping noodles, like which are thick and they tend to have like this like really slimy texture, outer surface. So we want to like get rid of them, and so we how we do that is like we rub them off like in running water and as much as possible, right? And then in that process, sometimes we chill the noodles like to well get a tighter texture in the noodles, and then again like here, we have to like strain the noodles like off the water like as much as possible, and before we place them in a plate so that the noodles will not dilute the soup, dipping soup as much. So and another thing like I have to mention like when cooking noodles is that like it's like the water, right? The water kind of water we use for cooking noodles, and you can definitely say that, and we've been saying that like when for production of these stocks as well, and we should use soft water, and because there are like a lot of like magnesium, like calcium, like in hard water. Um, all these ingredients like concentrate salt, and in case of the cooking stocks, cooking base stocks, it's like umami essence, like they're trying to like come out right of the ingredients into the cooking water, because there's less room, right? Like because of this all this magnesium, like calcium, there's less room for these substances, like to be released to cooking water. So it takes long time to cook noodles and like to cook the stocks. And so depending on the hardness of the water, tap water you're using, well, first of all, like you should measure the hardness of the water. But like if the hardness is it's a certain like about like certain level, then that well the installment of like this water softener would like help the quality, not only like quality of the noodles and quality of the soup stocks, as well as like the amount of time you spend on like production of stocks and I mean cooking noodles, and then of course like we definitely like the money, right? The money part, like like the utility fees, the even like the or the ingredients that we would buy, right? For example, like the pork bones and other stuff, like would be saved like greatly. So if you if you like tap water is hard, and then you should consider use of water softener. That's a no-brainer. And the other thing I have to mention when cooking noodles is that like because when cooking noodles, the noodles there's the salt and calcium, and they're contained in the ramen noodles are released, right? Like they're melted into the cooking water, and in exchange, noodles absorb cooking water. Then the noodles are gelatinized and like get cooked, right? And then so like as we cook more noodles over time, the basically the water, cooking water, like gets dirtier and dirtier with salt and calcium. And if you've done it before, and you see that like the color of the water becomes like yellow and yellow and more yellow, and then like there's a certain point where it's that water is like kind of like too saturated, and then it's not the efficiency of the like cooking water is not as much as it should be, right? And so in that case, like we should change the water, or like well the yeah, change the water, right, to the cleaner water. And so that's one of the reasons that like the noodle cooker that we use has this feature that like allows the overflow of cooking water, and then just drains the kind of dirtier water like little by little, and then we should have like tap that runs the well should, like ideally hot water, right? Then to sort of like add the clean water a little by little, to keep the quality water as cleanly as possible, as far as long as possible during the cooking of noodles. And so noodle cooker, we should have a faucet, right, that runs soft water and ideal hot water to keep cooking water as clean as possible during busy hours. And so around the cooker, we have like some ditches that allow overflowing the cooking water, which helps replenish cooking water. And the other thing I have to mention is that like we have to have kind of like really high powered like heating that kind of like well because when we put like another put up like another portion of noodles, fresh noodles, that lowers the cooking water temperature. And we should keep like certain water temperature like as for as long as possible. So for like efficient cooking, so we should have like kind of well high powered cooker that kind of backs up like cooking temperatures like as quickly as possible. So these three things, we should consider like for our noodle cooker. And I have to emphasize that because like noodle cooker is the one that usually becomes a bottleneck when it comes like kind of sampling serving operation. So okay, and toppings. So that comes at the last actually. As a component for the ramen dish, ramen bowl ramen, and there are certain like toppings, and these toppings are usually prepared. They're like pre-cut, like they're like pre-cooked, and then then it comes to well another point variation that like I have to like start talking about, which is the temperature. So that yeah, so temperature matters like as far as the experiences that our customers have with our noodle dishes go, as well as for the food safety. So food temperature plays another variable in maintaining our product quality, taste, and safety. And first of all, the temperature matters to food safety, like what we saw at our ramen shops or like any restaurants actually, any like food business. And during business hours, we need to hold like certain food components in certain temperature conditions. And so like we need to have like solid understanding of the temperature range that's typically referred to as like danger zone. So between 40 degrees Celsius and 60 degrees Celsius. Any food should not stay in the temperature for more than 4 hours, this range. And then otherwise like foods like would like spawn like dangerous bacteria. And the cold foods that have been like refrigerated like at and below 40 degrees Celsius can be kept below the same temperature for like up to 6 hours, but you need to keep the temperature of the food checked like every 2 hours. Any food reaching a temperature of like 70 degrees need to be thrown out. And of course, like rather than me like by talking about this, like you can definitely Google them and know more about food safety temperatures, like time/temperature control safety foods, safe cooking temperatures for different types of food. So please check them and study them more details. But other things I want to talk about, like how the food temperature affects the quality of what we offer at our ramen shops. And the temperature of ramen soup plays an important role actually in making the taste of soup great. In general, like ramen soup, like hot soup noodle dish and dipping noodle dish needs to be at least over 70 degrees Celsius or like 158 degrees Fahrenheit to taste good. So certain flavor oils do not melt below 80 degrees Celsius, like 176 degrees Fahrenheit. So, for us to be able like to serve a bowl like hot noodle soup, the soup that's higher than a certain temperature, um, the bowl the soup is served in is usually lower in temperature than the soup, right? So pouring the heated stock into the bowl lowers the soup temperature. So depending on the temperature of the bowl, the temperature the soup is lowered, right? Below a good tasting temperature. So a ramen shop, typically, I mean, usually practices like keeping the bowls warmed and ready for serving. But for the food safety, like we need to, of course, like store the base stocks at or below 40 degrees Celsius and heat them up to order. So this way, like we can keep the quality of base stocks for as long as possible, safely, and serve quality ramen soup that tastes great in the right temperature. So to heat up like portions-based stocks individually, we need to have multiple ranges, stock ranges that are like ready to heat up like base stocks quickly. And when it comes to noodles, noodles to be, well, I think we've talked about it before, but like noodles, well, need to be cooked above certain temperature, and because the cooking water needs to be boiling to cook fresh noodles to boil them to a state called gelatinized state. The cooking temperature of the water is ideally 98.6 degrees Celsius. Another thing to remember is that like throwing another portion of fresh noodles into cooker lowers the temperature of the cooking water. You need to have a noodle cooker with a strong heating capacity to bring the cooking water temperature back up as quickly as possible. And when the cooking water turns dirty, like with calcium and other things melted from noodles, because the efficiency of the cooking water weakens, we need to add water to keep the cooking water somewhat cleaner. This lowers the cooking water temperature unless hot water is added, right? So we should have a faucet that runs a small quantity of clean water into the noodle cooker to maintain the cleanness of the cooking water, so that we can hold the cooking efficiency to a certain level during busy time. Okay, and the toppings. So there are like toppings as a like ramen shop serves. For example, like there are softly boiled eggs, right, that have been like marinated in special sauces, which are also used as tare, right, for ramen soup. And eggs are cooked to have like typically like yolk, runny, right, runny yolks. And when we boil eggs, like we start well white, the white part starts solidifying from like 63 degrees Celsius, and yolk solidifies is at around 70 degrees Celsius. So once we make softly boiled eggs, we cool and soak them in the sauces for a certain period of time and refrigerate them. And when we are serving them at our ramen shops, we should store them at or lower them 40 degrees Celsius to avoid danger zone and but retain the runny yolks. And another typical item ramen shops uses is chashu or like slices of like or piece of meat, there are pork and chicken, like etc. Right? Because the high temperature solidifies protein of the meat, making the texture hard. We need to store those pieces of meat at or below 40 degrees Celsius. And upon serving, right, ramen shops practices like heating these pieces of meat by combat burner to temperature that's not high enough to solidify the protein. So then it comes to kind of like actual like assembling setup, and so assembling parts. This is a serving station. Let's say that like typical ramen shop, and assembling parts into the product and the order for dining in like takeaway like delivery businesses. There are two basic ways like we can set up like the assembly and serving stations at our business, and because the bottleneck may rise in either like of the two processes in assembly operations, we should focus on either of these points to assemble parts and serve a product on order as quickly as possible. So two processes are either cooking of noodles or warming of the heating of the base stocks. The time it takes to cook noodles is proportionate to the noodle size. The larger, longer, depending on the type of noodles we're cooking, we may want to choose different method. But like the first method, where we have base stocks are being warmed to a certain temperature in a relatively large, it's like 15-liter stock pot. It's capable of serving like a good number of balls of noodles in a short period of time, a busy time. Because it takes less time to warm these base stocks. The overall assembly time should be like shortened. And so as you can see, like in this setup, right? So like we first like start cooking noodles, and then we put the tare oil in the bowl using the pre designed ladle that just scoop of it, like just full scoop of it, and it provides us with like right amount of tare and oil. And we have a warmer, right? We have a warmer, like probably like stock pot that's been warmed to certain degrees, right? And of course, like above the danger zone. Then so we just all we had to just take a scoop, right, and then add it to the bowl. And so once we've done that, and then like probably wait for the noodles to be cooked, and soon the noodles are cooked, right, and then we strain them and then add it to the bowl, and we start plating the toppings, right. And then the other method, right, uses multiple tabletop ranges to heat up base stocks for each bowl of ramen that we get older, right? And then we like literally like assembling each bowl of ramen to order, and this allows us to keep base stocks for a longer period of time. The stocks can be kept out of the dangerous temperature zone between 4 and 60 degrees Celsius. So we usually start with like cooking noodles and start assembling a bowl of ramen soup. So while noodles being cooked, right, we heat up a serving of beef stocks and put predetermined amount of tare and flavored oil in the bowl. Once beef stock is warmed up, and then we put it in the bowl. And when noodles cooked, right, we strain noodles out and place in the bowl and lifting them to coat coat the noodles with the like beef stocks, tare, and oils. Yeah, and then we start plating the toppings. So that like these are the two methods that like we could think about depending on the basically like environment of your ramen business. Like when if you have like really busy kind of like intense like 3 hours of like business time, like maybe lunchtime, like in dinner time, you may want to do the like the first method, and then like but if you like have like kind of on and off like kind of business hours, like well there's like well it's not that it doesn't get that intense, but like you get probably like group of like 5 customers at the time, and then like not you know not the frenzy busy, so you could go with the second method. And so, we talk about all these. So, we manufacture like we produce like all these parts in our kitchen or like the shop inside the shop, right? And then we assemble them. The little restaurant like to order, like when we get an order, like we start assembling them. And so, we showed you guys like this the floor plan, which actually help you draw for your business, for your actual location. And so there's like a noodle production section, and there's a seating area, and there's a section that like dedicated for kind of production soups. And yeah, the last thing, like, because we're gonna be moving into the kitchen later, like, so yeah, this is the sort of the setup we have in the kitchen. And so we have like a bunch of induction cookers, and yeah, it's like with high powered induction cookers, and we have like different areas for different purposes. And but we basically have like wet areas and then like dry areas. And dry areas like we make noodles and then other dry things, dry foods. So kind of going to demonstration like noodle making. I just want to just go through this like very quickly, and So we're like when we're making ramen noodles, like think about ingredients like solid ingredients and liquid ingredients, and we can break them into like different components, and of course like we have to like think about noodle sizes, and this is sort of like the way to like kind of consider like kind of noodle recipes, and we have like wheat, protein, like how much protein the wheat contains, like that we use. The hard, like the higher the protein content, like harder the noodle texture, and the hydration ratio, noodle size, and whether they're like sort of like cold or hot. And so this is like different sizes um, for different kind of ramen um, applications. Yeah, so this is the Richmond one machine that we have, and then so this machine is only one machine and C certified, like ready to be making craft noodles in EU countries, and has everything you need to start making noodles. And then first of all, like you have this mixer, and this mixer is like 10 kilograms mixer, and which means that like you can mix up to 10 kilograms of solid ingredients, like flour, like some other things like solid ingredients, and then and on top of that, you're adding this liquid ingredients, and so it's 10, and you can probably go as high as 40% hydration ratio, 40% hydration ratio. So 40% hydration ratio of 10 kilograms of solid ingredients is basically 4 kilograms of liquid ingredients. So you can be making a maximum like 14 kilograms of dough at a time. And so we're adding the liquid into the mixer lid, which has like all these holes, right? So these holes, and these holes allows us to add liquid little by little to render good hydration of dough. And yes, we can keep watching the mixing process, but like, well, I'm running out of time, so she prepared the dough in advance. And so look at this, the size of dough. That's that's uh, that's a good hydration dough. And then like look at the color of the dough, and it's a bit yellowy. And then this is the effect of the kansi ingredients that we use, and then particularly the kansi inside the kansi there's this ingredient called like potassium carbonate, which makes the noodle dough yellow and hard. And so the use of potassium carbonate makes this noodle. And then what we have like other type of ingredients, like we call like sodium carbonate. Sodium carbonate does the exact opposite. It softens the noodle dough texture, and doesn't give us the color, the yellow. But we usually blend them at the different ratios for different noodle sizes, and if we want to, of course, make the noodle texture harder, we increase the amount of potassium carbonate. Well, if we want like decrease the amount like hardness, right? We increase the amount like sodium carbonate. So if you're making thin noodle, we usually increase the amount of potassium carbonate to make them harder. And we're making like thick noodles, we're increasing the amount of sodium carbonate to make them soft. And like the larger the noodle size, the softer the noodle texture should be. Otherwise, if they are thick and hard, and then it would be just, you know, hard to eat, right? It's not really a good texture. So basic rule is that like the larger the noodle size, the softer the noodle texture should be. So um, the thicker noodles were increase the amount of sodium carbonate, and thinner noodles we increase the amount of potassium carbonate. So, so what we're doing now is that like we're just making rough sheet of dough. This machine has the two rollers, right? Two rollers, and yeah, and then like when we open the like this gate, right? The machine stops because of safety feature that it has. Nobody wants to, with the hand like holding the rollers. So this machine has like two rollers and then roller gap between them, like you can control with the handle, and you can control up to, well, as small as like 0.1 millimeter. So it's very precise. And so making a rough sheet of dough, and well, it's still rough, and but no, it's forming into noodles. And then for like around the first round like sheeting process, like we're like going slowly, like on purpose, and because we want to, because like this dough is like out of like a mixing process, and then we want to apply good good pressure into the dough to form gluten structure inside dough. So we're going slow on purpose, but you can definitely like speed up the sheeting process. And the roller gap that like we initially set to the first round of rolling like sheeting was like 1.5 millimeter, and 1.5 millimeter. And well, the next step like we're doing is a combining process. So this, because this dough is like still like weak, like fragile, like it's easy to like break, and but we want to make them stronger. And to do that, like we separate it into two sheets of dough, right? And then combine them like through this set of rollers. So this is how we make it firm. And so that was like 1.5 millimeter, right? Previously. So each sheet was supposed to be like 1.5 millimeter in thickness, and but we are putting like two sheets of them together, right? And so that means like 1.5 plus 1.5 millimeter thickness of dough like is be like 3.0 millimeter thickness equivalence, right? And so we are sheeting them, like we're gradually like having good pressure on the dough. And so every time like we sheet the dough, right, we will reduce the pressure by 30%. 30%. So 30%, like 3 millimeter is that's 0.9, and so subtract 0.9 millimeter from like 3 millimeter, right? So then that's like about 2.1 millimeter. And so we set the roller gap to 2.0 millimeter, just for the just for like to make it simple, right? And so just making it even, right? And just yeah, sheeting them like just two into like two separate sheets, like dough into one, and this process strengthens the gluten structure inside dough. And we're doing like another round of this combining process. And so again, like just a bit of a calculation. So the previous round of sheeting, like it was 2 millimeter in thickness. So like each sheet is supposed to be like 2 millimeter in thickness, right? And but we are putting them together through a roller, right? So it means that like 2 millimeter plus 2 millimeter are becoming one, right? So that means that like there's a dough sheet that's equivalent of like 4 millimeters in thickness is going to the roller, and to get the appropriate like pressure amount, we again like apply this 30% rule, reduction rule, and so 4 millimeter times 30%, that's 1.2. So subtract 1.2 from the 4 millimeter, and we get like 2.8 millimeter. But we round it up to 3, just for the sake of simplicity. So we set the roller gap to 3 millimeter. And from this point on, we want to start dusting. Start dusting it because this is fairly high hydration noodles dough. So we want to keep it from sticking. So we want to start dusting it from this point on. So after that, after this process, the dough is complete, type of noodle texture. So all we have to do is just thin it, right? Thin it to the final thickness. Into the final thickness, and so that was 3. So again, like applying the 30% reduction rule, we reduce it to 2 millimeter. 3 times 30%, 0.9, 3 minus 0.9, 2.1. So roughly about like 2.0 millimeter. And from this point on, we can go faster. So she put the rollout speed high gear, and now it's going faster. All right, so and that was 2. That was 2, and now it may be ready for cutting, and a 2 millimeter roller gap that it's going through right in. But when we measure the actual thickness, that's 2.6. So there's like a difference of like 0.6 millimeter. And I have to note that the actual thickness of dough like is always bigger. That the roller gap is reset, and it's always bigger because the like each wheat flour, and then like it expands back, like it'll sound like it's going through the roller gap. So yeah, and so that's why we have to like we have to measure the actual thickness before we start cutting it into noodles, for us to like know what roller gap we have to set to get that final thickness that we want. Taking in the difference, right? Different, like how much it expands. And the first set of noodles, like she's cutting, like it's number 12, like that's 2.5 millimeter in width, right? And that's a kind of cutter we use, and this cutter, has like all these grooves, right? And each groove is fixed in the width that it cuts, right? And so this cutter is usually used for, as you might like remember from the last slide, like I showed you guys, this cutter is usually used for like a tsukemen noodle, like dipping noodle, we talked about. And so a total like 12.5 millimeter, but like the so we're cutting it. And with this machine, you can adjust the serving size by changing the length, change the length of noodles that are being cut, and basically like you can make it shorter for small serving size. You can make it longer for bigger serving size. That's yeah, that's how you change your portion size. And again, like tsukemen dipping noodles, usually like the portion size is pretty big compared to regular like hot soup noodles, because well, kind of like to compensate for less amount of soup. Well, ramen shops like use bigger serving size of noodles to sort of like kind of cover for kind of less amount of soup, right? But then like tsukemen itself is like kind of well dish that you sort of like kind of designed for customers to enjoy both the noodle texture. So that's another reason. And the cutter she's using now is number 16. That's 2.0 millimeter in width. And this kind of cutter is like also used for kind of small size tsukemen too, the dipping noodles, but like it's also used for like miso kind of ramen, like kind of curly miso ramen noodles, and like other like some mazamen, like soupless noodles that we talked about. So they're like this size of noodles like is used for few different types of ramen. So it's kind of obvious that like how different they are, like these noodles, like even though they are like the same dough, um, or by changing the size of the noodles, like they look totally different, and then they actually taste completely different, like in terms of noodle texture. So it's so if you're operating a ramen shop and then you have like a few types of ramen dishes that you want to serve, but you want to sort of like limit the dough, the type of dough that you use, right? And it's like you just want, you may just be able to like change the noodle sizes to like have, and then kind of like will cater these couple of these noodles to with the different types of ramen dishes that you may be serving at your ramen business, ramen restaurant. So one of them is like typically used for tsukemen noodle, dipping noodles, and another one we use for like mazemen soupless noodles or like miso ramen noodles, typically. And that's so that was rich man one. Yeah, so okay, so this is our kitchen, and we use it for teaching our students at our school, and yeah, so I like to show you guys some equipment we have, and then we're talking about the water softener, over here, and then like it's a very simple device. Like you can just like install it, and it start running soft water, and so again, like it really depends on the hardness of the water, like tap water you're using. Um, if the tap water is like kind of soft enough, this may not like change the quality of noodles or like quality of stocks or like time it takes you to like cook the noodles or stocks by much. But yeah, but like I advise you to I recommend that you check your water first, see like how hard it is, and then if it's like pretty hard, and then you should consider using this kind of water softener. They're great, and we have like a bunch of like induction cookers over here, and they are very very powerful. And during school, like we cook different types of fish stocks here, like in these induction cookers. Like we cook like up to like 120, 150 liters of stock pot at a time, and it's very powerful. And so as you can notice, there are faucets, right? Faucets that are like set up like for each of the pots, and they run soft water. And this is what we have. And then we talk about that sink over there, right? Like in the last class. So we need to like cool down the cook the stocks like as quick as possible to keep down the bacteria like from growing. And so it's something you may want to have like at your for your ramen business. Okay, and so we basically make everything like in this kitchen, everything like every single part, every single component that you need to have like for your ramen. And this is Mr. Akeda, like our chief instructor at our school, and we'd like to have him show us how we can put together different types of ramen dishes.
はい、ではお願いします。でまず普通の醤油ラーメンの方から、
はい、
はい、汁そばですね、
はい、
からいただき
はい。
ます。
Like first of all, like we start with the soup,
はい。
hot soup noodles dish.
ではまずですね、スープの方から後で出てきます。
So let's go with the heating of the base stock first. And notice that like that ladle, right? Ladle like that. That's designed to have like just one scoop to be like weighed like 300 grams, like which is typical one serving like soup based stock.
丼も冷たいといけないので温めます。
And so you notice like he's like warming the bowl, right? We talk about like the difference between the temperature of like a ceramic bowl and then the base stock. Right,
ま
so
あ、お湯で温めたり、なんかウォーマーに入れたりとか、まあ、好きな形で温めていただければ。
so we could like warm it by like actually pouring the hot water in it, or we could use it like some warmer to keep them warm.
スープの方がある程度温まってきてから麺を入れていきます。
Okay, so once once like this stock is kind of warmed up, like to some point, we start cooking the noodles.
入れしか1分ですね。
And cooking time is just 1 minute for this noodle size.
で茹でてる間に丼の方にタレを入れていきます。
And while we are cooking the noodles, I'm gonna place the tare and oil. There's a ladle that's designed to have a predetermined amount of tare and flavored oil. So just no brainer, just take one scoop, and then that's the right amount.
で、茹で上がる直前にスープの方を入れていきます。
So right before noodles finish cooking, I'm gonna pour the heated stock right to the bowl. And again, like we have to strain the water as much as possible. Right. So once we put the noodles in, we'll start plating the toppings, which we don't have today, but that's how the flow goes. All right. So next.
次は混ぜ麺とつけ麺両方ともいきます。
So why don't let's start doing the tsukemen and mazemen, like just soupless noodles, like.
ちょっと混ぜ麺茹で時間がかかるので先に。
So the mazemen, like it takes the longest time to cook the noodles. So I'm just gonna start with the mazemen, the tsukemen noodles first.
茹でてる間に混ぜ麺の方ですね。
And the mazemen, gonna start cooking mazemen 2, and for the tsukemen, number 12 size, that's 6 minutes of cooking time, and mazemen soupless noodles, that's 2 minutes cooking time. And for the bowl, like mazemen soupless noodle, like, I'm gonna warm up the bowl as well.
混ぜ麺はスープがないので、丼が温まったらタレと油ですね、そちらを入れて麺を直接入れていきます。
So mazemen is like soupless noodles. So like once the bowl is warmed up, I'm going to put the tare and oil in, and then put the cooked noodles in the bowl.
つけ麺の方ですね。つけ麺の方もスープ温めておきます。
As for the tsukemen noodles, I'm gonna warm up the stock.
つけ麺の方は麺を洗う工程がありますので、麺を完全に盛り付けてから最後スープを注ぐようにします。
Okay, so for the tsukemen noodles, there's a process, like there's a step, like another step that where I have to wash the noodles. Remember, like we had to get rid of starch of the noodle surface. So there's like another process, like washing the noodles. So once we wash the noodles and then plate the noodles in the plate, I'm going to make that. I'm going to assemble the soup.
じゃあ、まずめの方ですね、丼拭いて、で、タレと油を入れました。
Okay, so I wipe the like all the water off the bowl and then put the tare and oil in it.
で今日は茹で上がった麺をそのまま入れますが、よりこう表面のぬめりとか、つるみをしっかり出したいとかいう場合は、一回しっかり洗って、ぬめりを落としてから、入れてください。
So for the mazemen noodles, well, I'm gonna put the noodles like straight into the bowl for this one. But if you prefer having all these like starch, removed off the noodle surface and everything, it's like so you should wash the noodles and yeah, and then like remove the starch like completely.
この状態でいいですね。
And then so once we reach the point, and then like we start plating the toppings, plating it with the toppings.
はい。では次、つけ麺ですね。こちらも温めていきます。
So for the tsukemen, I want to warm the bowl as well. So notice like how small the bowl is, like compared to other types of ramen dishes.
でつけ麺は茹で上がりましたら、こちらですね、入れて、洗っていきます。
So once the noodles are done, right, for the tsukemen noodles, I'm gonna like put it in the bowl and then start washing them.
基本的につけ麺は麺が冷たい状態で、スープが温かい状態ですね。
So the basic style, like serving the tsukemen noodles, tsukemen dishes, is that like the noodles are cold and that like soup is hot.
で、麺を洗った後にもう一回温め直して乗せた、厚盛りと言われるものもあります。
And there's another style like serving the tsukemen noodles, where we will wash the noodles to get rid of starch, and then warm the noodles again after that, and then serve it. It's like we call that tsumori, but like that's so the noodles are hot as well. Like noodles are warm as well. Like the soup is hot as well.
こちらの方もタレを入れていきます。
Okay, so I'm gonna put the tare and oil in for the tsukemen soup.
スープのラーメンの時は先にスープ注いだんですけども、今回はつけ麺なので麺を洗う工程がありますので、まだスープ入れないです。
うん。茹で麺機の場合、結構何色みたいなのあるじゃないですか。
はい。
あれって普通というか、何色分とかっていうのは、まあ6色分とか。
6色とか4色とかそれぞれあります。いろんなサイズはあります。
最大6ぐらい。
そうですね、ぐらいだとは思うんですけども、わかめもあるから何体もあるのかな。多分ただここの
はいはい。
サーブするところがうまいこと回らないと結局伸びてしまうので、そこがいけるかどうかですね。
Yeah. So like we had a question, like someone asking, with a noodle cooker, like how many portions of noodles like can we cook? Would you recommend? So 30 to 40 seating restaurant, まあ30席、40席で言うと4つでもいいのかな。Yeah, so it's 30 to 40 seating restaurant, like maybe, this size of noodle cooker, like 4 baskets, maybe sufficient. And I like, the noodle cooking tends to be the bottleneck, the serving operation. But I think like if you like kind of plan to serve like some thick noodles more than the like thin noodles, regular style noodles. Uh, yeah, then you may want to have like more basket, like maybe 6 baskets, so that um, your yeah, so like your serving size. I mean, like your like the noodle cooking part wouldn't be a bottleneck.
水が濁らなくなるんですね。しっかりと洗っていく。
So, so like how you can tell like whether it's washed or not is that like when you wash them, the water is not like diluted like anymore as much. So that's how like we can tell like it's done washing.
で、麺の盛り付けの、見た目にあまりこだわらない方は、そのままこうしっかりとっていただいて、そのまま
So
盛っていきます。
yeah, so like if you don't care about like the presentation of the plate, then you just like kind of squeeze the water out and then like plate it, right? Plate the noodles. But like if you care about like how the appearance of the dish, then you should think about some other way to do it.
で、きれいに整えたい場合はですね、水の中に泳がせながらですね、
so like if you wanna like make it nicer, like make it look nicer, right? And then like you want to well have the like so like if you sit like if you dare like to kind of have them do like kind of swim in the water, right? And then kind of straighten them up, calm them and straighten them up, right? Then yeah, and then like just squeeze the water out as much as possible, and then yeah, plate it like that. Sorry.
で、ここにトッピングをか何か乗っていただいたりとか。
Yeah. So usually like we plate the toppings like around the noodles, and so that's how like we sort of like plate it, the toppings. And it's for the soup, right? Like so we have the heated base stock, right, and then mixed with
今の
tare and yeah, the flavored oil, and that's how it's done. Okay. So thank you very much, Mr. Ikeda. Thank you. That was great. So that's how you like so serve like three major styles of like ramen dishes, and so it's very easy. Like and then like what's important here is that like you have like you can make you can just like kind of design the environment, right? You can design like all the tools, utensils to fit your offerings, like what you're offering, and you can have like the ladle that's designed to like kind of have with the one scoop kind of designed to be able like have like certain predetermined amount like tare, predetermined amount like flavor oil, and predetermined amount of the base stocks, right? So it's basically like just kind of creating an environment where your employees it's hard for your employees to make mistakes and to have like kind of consistent quality over and over. Like so you'll be able to like serve the same quality dish over and over. So that's basically our sort of message that like you need to like design your serving station in a way that that makes it like hard for your employees to make mistakes. And sorry, we have some questions. So how is your definition of soft water? And soft water basically means that like so there's no um, particles of the calcium, magnesium, like all these like minerals in the water, contained in water. So like there are like different units of measurement, like like German measurement, like kind of North American measurement, like parts per million, um, and then like there's some like degrees, right? But basically, yeah, you can definitely look it up like in the internet or Google it, rather like my explanation. But like basically, like if there's no if there's a the water is like less than 3.5 degrees of hardness, that's like kind of like German measurement, or like less than 1.5 or something, then that's considered soft water. And it's all made of like so water softener wouldn't be able to affect the quality of noodles, shorten the cooking time if you use that kind of water. then yeah, so that's kind of our definition. So another question, are the noodle cookers standard design in Japan or are they tailored? Um, so because yeah, these are standard design, and as I explained, like so it has pretty powerful kind of heating system in there, and then um, the faucet, like you can just well install in your restaurant or like um, serving station, and then like so there's a um, yeah, there's like a overflow hole in there, like drainage, right? So that's like basically what you have to have in a noodle cooker. And yeah, they're like fancier versions. Like there's like a kind of like auto lifter. Like when the time's up, like it just lifts up right by like automatically, right? But these are standard designs in Japan, and but it's possible actually to find this kind of noodle cooker overseas as well. And if you're interested, like we can definitely refer you to like some suppliers that carry this kind of noodle cooker so in your country. So yeah, please let us know if you have any question. And that's all the questions we had. And um, so thank you so much for attending your class. Bye bye.